Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. You'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good mic work. Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cell.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast. Subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good mic work commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
It feels awesome to be back in the podcast saddle again. What's going on, guys? Good Mic Work Commentaries back at you, and welcome to your Winged Eagle podcast for July 16th, 2022. First Winged Eagle in, I think, 3 weeks, because a couple of weeks ago, Money in the Bank was on a Saturday, and then I've been on vacation for the past week or so, and we are finally getting back up here now for a massively loaded podcast and a lot of stuff to catch up on while I was gone. That's not even including all of the Vince McMahon shit that went down while I was on vacation as well. If you would like to hear my thoughts on the Vince McMahon scandal and all the latest going on there, we did a video live stream on Thursday afternoon. That video is right at the top of my YouTube page right now. You can go over there and check it out. We spent about an hour and 15 minutes talking about Vince McMahon, the latest on his scandal, what that could mean for his WWE future and what my thoughts and beliefs are on the whole situation. So if you want to hear us unpack all of that, you're going to have to scroll back to Thursday to hear everything there. This podcast is going to be catching up on a lot of stuff. It's going to be news heavy. It's going to be TV result heavy. We're going to be previewing pay-per-views here and talking about a lot of stuff, a lot of topics, a lot of situations that we're going to go through one after another here. So it should be a fun 2-hour chill live podcast for you guys before I head off to work tonight. So we will do some pleasantries here in the chat. I'll shout out some patrons, let you guys know what's on tap for today in terms of news and results and all of the subjects we're going to talk about. And I want to let you guys know what to expect in the next couple of days. Tomorrow night here on the YouTube channel, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, we are going to live react to WWE SummerSlam 1992. 30-year anniversary of that show taking place in Wembley. The link is down in the description right now, so you can join us tomorrow night as we resume our Sunday night classic pay-per-view watch-alongs. We have missed the last 3 weeks of those due to my work schedule and vacation schedule, so it'll be really fun to get back up here doing that tomorrow, so keep that in mind. And also on Monday night, we are going to be here doing a Raw review because I have not paid a whole lot of attention to Raw in the last few weeks, and I thought Monday would be a nice night to come up here, even if the show sucks, just to get caught up on what's going on the Raw side of things. Granted, there's not much of a brand split these days anymore. SmackDown and Raw are just intermingling like it's nothing, but still, I feel like we've neglected Raw just a little bit, so we'll do that on Monday night and probably talk a lot about the Raw storylines a little bit more in detail than we will here today, although we will talk a little bit about Theory, the briefcase, and all that shit, and of course we're going to preview the current, burping on podcast, we're going to preview the current SummerSlam card. I just took a big sip of water, and y'all just caught a belch on live YouTube. Sorry about that. Where are my manners? But anyway, let me scroll over here to the chat and say hello. Please do me a favor, if you don't mind, smash that thumbs up button for me. Try to get these likes up since the channel has been hurting for likes in the last couple of weeks because I haven't been here for any videos. So please do that. And if you're not a subscriber, make sure you do that as well. We are up here most every Saturday for these Winged Eagles to discuss wrestling news and anything that happened throughout the week. Also results, last night's SmackDown and Rampage, of course, and anything that might be coming up in the future is generally what we do here on Saturday afternoons. But I have really missed you guys, and I'm glad I'm back. It was great to be back up here on Thursday doing my first live stream in about 12 or 13 days or whatever it was. So happy to be back in the YouTube groove, and like I said, we got a lot to talk about today. But I want to say hello to Jet the Hawk and Tatanani, Destiny, Vash, Joe, Lil Justin, I always get that name wrong. Trey Williams, good to see you, man. Barry MK, who I actually saw and met in Hawaii for the second time while I was there last week. Tomorrow will be Daphne's birthday. Rest in peace, Daphne. That's a shame. Good to see Tyler. How Wheezy in the house and Ronnie. I got some friends here. That is awesome. Andy Linnell is here. Isaac with the $2 drop. Appreciate that, my friend. Have you seen the pic of Stone Cold playing Zelda? No. Like Legend of Zelda, the old gold Nintendo cartridge that I have? No, I haven't. I would like to see that. If it's some modern Zelda, probably won't mean much to me. But that's awesome. Thank you for that, Isaac. Good to see you. Thomas, Deshaun is in the house. Sam, Danny, Big J, Austin, Typhu, Ben is here. We got Danny, I think I got you. Sonic Plays, Rarely Even. Angie is in the house. Michael Kumo's in the house. Right on. A whole bunch of y'all. Good. Happy you're here. Happy Saturday to you. Happy weekend. And it should be a fun one here on the channel because tomorrow night, like I said, we're going to take a trip over the pond, across the pond, and visit Wembley Stadium to watch Bret Hart take on the British Bulldog in the main event. And a gentleman, I forget his name now, who was responding to me on Twitter, said that he was like in the front row for this. And we might be able to see him. So hopefully he'll join us tomorrow. He has fond memories of that show, attended the show, and was right there up close for all that stuff. I forget his name now. I'm so sorry. But hopefully you'll be able to join us tomorrow night and point yourself out to us because it's a show that I remember very, very well. And especially the build to it and everything, me being a big Bret Hart mark. Tomorrow night will be a bittersweet night for me. Because I really did enjoy the match, even though Bret Hart came out on the short end of the stick. It's been about 3 weeks since I've said hello and shouted out all of our current subscribers on Patreon, so I want to do that real quick. And welcome a couple of new subscribers, Joseph Hudson and Zach Palgut. Now, I've seen your name before, buddy. I think you follow me on Twitter and you respond every now and then. Good to see you here, Zach, and thanks for the patronage. Also, Chris Broski, Divine Ricks, JJ Legg, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, Martin Can, Apron Bump Podcast, who I was a guest on right before I left for Hawaii. If you go over to, I don't have the link down below, but search Apron Pump Podcast on YouTube. I did a SummerSlam 2002 review with him a couple of weeks ago that's on Kyle's channel now, so please check that out. Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Jimmy Anderson, K-Dogs, Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, John Redifer, Claudio Clavadetcher, Daniel Rodriguez, Reese Jones, Barry MK, who I met in Hawaii. Devlin, I also want to shout out, who also lives in Hawaii, heading back over here to the States here in a few months. Lives on a different island. Didn't get to see him this time, but I did meet Devlin on the Jericho cruise, and he is a great dude. Josiah Blevins, John Riffle, Michael Cuomo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, and Blake Moran. Good to see you guys, as always, those of you who are here, and thank you again for all of your support on Patreon, and especially Michael, who is the leader in all-time pledges on Patreon. Oh, I'm sorry, you are just a hair behind Claudio Clavadetcher. You're like $5 behind him, Michael, but you've made up for it a lot with a lot of super chats, dude, over the years. So I appreciate everybody's support over there and everybody who helps keep this channel going, you know, in terms of paying the bills. I appreciate it. You guys do a lot for me. I think that's about it. I mean, there's so many topics to get into here today. We should be diving into this soon. Let me just give you a quick rundown. I'm going to scroll through my notes. Let you know about a couple of the topics we're going to discuss. We're going to start with the whole WWE TV-14 rumors, news, possibilities, all that stuff surrounding it. We're going to get into that first. We'll follow up with some Sasha Banks news and her current asking price now that she is likely officially gone from WWE despite no official announcement. Ric Flair has been put back into the WWE intro, and he's got some beef with Chris Jericho, which we'll talk about. Big E. Good news and bad news. Feels like he suffered a setback while at the same time getting positive news from his doctors. The only big disappointment here is that he is still a long ways off from potentially ever returning to the ring, even if he does. So we'll kind of talk about that a little bit, but we will definitely put over the unbelievable positivity that Big E lives every day with. It's amazing. If only we could all be that positive, the world would be a pretty awesome place. When the hell is Bayley coming back? I got some ideas on that. A&E has launched more WWE partnership documentaries. Season 2 of the Legends biography series is up now. Undertaker was the first episode, and I think the next one is Sunday night or tomorrow night. Also, the Rivals series kicked off, and they started off with Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. I want to talk about that, and we'll talk about the upcoming episodes, because there was a couple of issues I have with that Shawn and Bret episode, because as you guys know, I'm a Shawn and Bret connoisseur, and I know when they're lying. So we'll talk about that. Also, there's some news on Santana and Ortiz. We have some updates on Santana's unfortunate injury that he suffered at Blood and Guts. Plus, word is that he's on his way out of AEW and not even really on good terms with Ortiz anymore, which is sad. Pat McAfee has also signed a WWE extension. I predict he will be WWE champion one day. WWE's also in talks with the incredibly boring Tyson Fury, someone who has no appeal to a fan like me whatsoever, but he's likely coming back into the company to do something, probably at Castlevania. Also, the Grizzled have undergone name changes, and they're terrible. The G1 Climax kicked off last night with 4 tournament matches. The Great Muta is going through his retirement run right now, had a match tonight, has 3 more left before his final match in January. We're also going to talk about the last couple of weeks of Dynamite. I did not see Wardlow win the TNT title, get this, until yesterday. That's how long it's been since I've really been out of the loop. I've been Island Greg. You ever watch Frasier? Island Niles? I was Island Greg. Having a good time in Hawaii, enjoying myself, really checked out of wrestling, and I did not see the Wardlow and Scorpio match until I pulled it up and looked at it yesterday. So I actually saw Wardlow beating Orange Cassidy before I saw him actually win the TNT title. So that's interesting. So we'll talk about the last couple of weeks of Dynamite. Also, Fyter Fest Night 1 on Wednesday. Fyter Fest Night 2 last night, and then I think we have Night 3 coming up this Wednesday with some pretty good matches announced, and a lot of good stuff took place this past week on Dynamite as well. An amazing Moxley and Takeshita match, and of course, new tag team champions crowned in the main event. We will look at the Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view, which is looking really good, that unfortunately I'm going to have to miss because that is a massively big night at work for me that I just cannot take off. So I'm not going to be able to order and watch Death Before Dishonor live, but based on the card right now, I am super excited about Ring of Honor's rebrand and relaunch. I think they are really going to fill the void left behind by the Black and Gold, and now not only will they fill that void that NXT Black and Gold left, I think they might exceed it, in the long run, because it's good to see Ring of Honor stable. I feel like they're going to be stable under Tony Khan. There's not going to be so much behind-the-scenes turmoil. It's going to have a little bit more of a steady flow to it, which is a big reason why I think Impact and TNA failed so badly, is because they just didn't have that stability. And Ring of Honor has struggled in the last few years as well. So really happy for the relaunch of Ring of Honor because of all the great talent that is going to be there and going to be able to come in and out because of it being under the same umbrella as AEW. Also, we'll take a brief look at Monday Night Raw, although I'm going to reserve most of my Monday Night Raw comments for Monday when we come up here and do the Raw review. But we do have to talk about that very interesting vignette that is clearly, obviously Edge, although I got a second take on that I think might be fun. Also, we will look at last night's SmackDown briefly. We won't get into much of it. Just talk a little bit about what we saw on that show and run through the current SummerSlam card, which by my count, we've got 5 matches announced so far. And that show's coming up in 2 weeks. So if they want to add another 6 matches to this, they better start doing it soon. So anyway, that's on the menu. Hope you guys are ready for that. Let me make sure all is good over here in the chat. Again, please do me a favor. Thumbs up button, smash would be immensely appreciated from you guys. And I think we can start getting down to business here. Let me just take another sip of water. I'll try not to burp this time. All right, here we go. So let's kick things off with the wrestling news. Like I said, we've got to talk about this WWE TV-14 nonsense that I guess was reported a couple of days ago in a tweet by Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast, and he had stated that on July 18th, which is this Monday, WWE Raw would be moving to a TV-14 rating. Shortly after that, after the entire YouTube world rushed up to make a video about it, which I had no interest in doing. I'm like, I don't think the TV-14 is going to matter at all, but I think people thought this was a way bigger deal than I did. And as soon as that happened, shortly after, Andrew issued a follow-up saying that it was basically like a wild situation and there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but at the end of the day, the plan is to not go TV-14 this Monday. This was a memo that was sent out prematurely, but there is a possibility of the TV-14 rating happening at a later date. It was also noted by Dave Meltzer that the change was made by the USA Network, not WWE. No real confirmation of that, but if this is a USA Network decision, then that's not going to be something that's really going to, I guess, change the product in my mind. Now, if it was WWE making this decision, say we want to go to TV-14, that would imply that they have some racier content or more mature content planned, and they need to get this TV rating in order to give them the room and the freedom to do that. But since this is a USA Network edict, if they're just slapping a TV-14 on WWE's content, that's because what they see right now already they believe is TV-14. So with the TV-14 rating, that might allow WWE a little bit of creative freedom to say shit a couple of times, but really at the end of the day, is it going to change the booking? No, it doesn't matter at all about the TV rating. You can't shine shit. And if something's bad, it's just bad. A TV rating ain't going to fix it. So there's so many more issues in WWE from a creative standpoint that could be done to help the product. A TV rating ain't going to do jack shit, really, in my mind, at the end of the day. Fightful Select also dove into this as well. None of their sources had heard any concrete news of this. So they were pretty much oblivious to it, which kind of backs up Meltzer's claim that this is coming down from USA Network. So basically, at the end of the day, I think it's a whole lot of talk about nothing. I think even if they did go to TV-14 this Monday, what would we really see that's different? I mean, it's still going to be stupid shit. Maybe it's a hair less cheesy, maybe a little bit less corny, just because you now have maybe a few more adult eyeballs watching this. We've seen NXT, horny splashy paint, kind of go in that direction. They're a little bit more racier, a lot more aggressive, with the sexual content and things like that. And we saw what that did for WWE back in the Attitude Era. I went to, as you guys know, many shows, countless shows, Raws, SmackDowns, house shows, pay-per-views, all during the heaviest and most popular time in WWE history. And I saw The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, DX, major stars come out. I heard and felt these pops in person. And I got to say, most nights, other than maybe Austin and maybe Rock, sometimes not even them, the loudest pops of the night came when Stacy Keibler or Tori Wilson or Sable ripped off their robe and exposed a bikini, or wrestled in mud, or did something just to show their titties. That's got the biggest pop of the night every night. You guys remember watching pay-per-views? Deborah or Terry Runnels jumps up on the apron when their man is in the ring and tears off their shirt. The crowd loses their shit. So sex, even in today's day and age, in this sensitive climate and everything, it still sells. Put a bunch of hot girls on TV, a bunch of 18 and 34-year-old men are going to tune in because they don't have girlfriends. So the TV works for them. So maybe that's part of this, but when you hear that it's all been handed down by USA Network, that's just their decision. Like I said, I think WWE could look at that decision and say, oh, we got a little bit more wiggle room now with certain things we can do, but is it going to matter? And that was a big debate years ago. When I started this YouTube channel, the PG era, I defended it right from the very beginning. I don't like cheesy, stupid content or anything, but I just didn't see at the time when everybody was complaining so hard about the PG era that was really the problem. I have maintained ever since 2007, after the Benoit murders happened, that WWE really cleaning up their image and maybe trying to change their product to, focus more on a younger audience and kids, which is why characters like John Cena existed. That was kind of in the direction they needed to go for the good of the company. I understood that decision from a business sense. So I kind of defended the PG era just because, look, I get it. You don't want to have all of these critics that are now looking at WWE under an even bigger microscope. They've already survived the steroid bullshit, all the other scandals, the Owen Hart death, the multiple frequent deaths that we just generally see in pro wrestling. Now you have one of your own who's, going nuts, murdering his own family, killing himself. That just puts more scrutiny, more bad press on WWE. And if these people now tune into Monday Night Raw, to see Vince McMahon tongue-kissing somebody 25 years old younger than him in front of his comatose wife in a wheelchair, what are they going to think about this? So WWE kind of had no choice in my mind to move in that direction. But now it's been 15 years. The Benoit murders anniversary just passed a few weeks ago. 15 years. So maybe it's time to make another direction turn. We've seen them make big changes before. I cannot believe what they have done to the NXT Black and Gold, and now that whole entire situation seems to be transferred over to Ring of Honor, and that's gonna fill that void, that thirst that good, real, true fans of pro wrestling like just good matches, good athletes, fun shit, and that's gone. So seeing them go in that big of a direction, stripping that down, basically letting all this talent leave and go to the competition, changing the entire format, look, vibe of the show, and making it go in a little bit of a racier direction with some of their content and some of their characters. So if they want, and NXT does have its fans. I personally just can't get behind it. I check out a little bit of it. I'm sure there's a lot of great talent there that I will grow to love when they get to the main roster. But in terms of investing in it the way I did in the Black and Gold, those days are never going to happen again. I'm sorry. So seeing them go in that direction has been favorable to some fans. I see people on Twitter all the time loving NXT every Tuesday. They named him Braun Breaker. Do you believe that? Braun Breaker. Sometimes I tweet that every now and then. So NXT does have its fans, and I think a lot of that content and a lot of that direction change did attract a lot of people and say, oh, okay, I'll stick with NXT, or I actually do like this. I thought it was going to be the shittiest thing in the world, and it's turned out to be okay. I've seen that opinion from a lot of people. So maybe, doing this on the Monday Night Raw level will help out as well. But then, you got to remember, you have two networks here. You've got USA and Fox. Fox, is a network channel, prime time on Friday night. They're probably not going to have the TV-14 rating for that. It's just going to be USA and Monday Night Raw. So now you're going to have one show where you can do a little bit more, one show where you can't. It might make things a little bit interesting. But like I said, in the end of the day, the creative problems run so much deeper than the TV-14 rating. And like what I was getting back to earlier, years ago when the fans were like really, really upset about the PG rating, a lot of people really viewed that as the problem. Because that goes back to the birth of this entire podcast, this entire YouTube channel. One of my first videos I ever did was I was like, shut up about the PG era. It's like not the problem. And I've said this time and time again, the problem is WWE exhausted everything. in the Attitude Era, when they were going really over the top with storylines. You had people giving birth to hands, for fuck's sake. You've seen some crazy shit from the years of 1996 through 2007. That 11-year window there saw some of the craziest stuff you could ever imagine. We've seen everything. We've seen every possible crazy over-the-top storyline to where there's really nothing left to do. And I think what I was trying to point out years ago in the era of Cena and Orton and all these guys, I'm like, look, you're never going to be able to return to the Attitude Era or to the excitement level of that time period, because what made that time period so good is that we were seeing shit that we had never seen. And if we can somehow find that again in modern times to give pro wrestling fans something that they had never seen before, you know, that could possibly be when the business picks back up. But nobody saw characters like The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin and groups like DX and crazy fucking matches like the Hell in the Cell with Mick Foley flying off the top. All the crazy shit they did during the Attitude Era, Austin and the beer truck and The Rock and his catchphrases and the puppies and the Vince McMahon family storylines and everything they did. Just think of all of it. Just try to get that time period of 11 years in your head and try to condense it down into about a minute and run through some of the highlights in your head. It's incredible stuff. And I remember those pops, the energy from the audience, because we were experiencing something foreign to wrestling fans. We were just coming out of the 80s. There was a big boom period in WWE, but was a lot less produced, a lot less over-the-top characters in terms of like DX and the freedom and the things you could say on TV. Breaking the fourth wall a little bit was very attractive to some fans. I marked out like a motherfucker when Shawn and Triple H showed the curtain call on Raw in 1997, the night after Hell in the Cell, night after Bad Blood, right after Brian Pillman died. Bret's leaving for WCW. Tensions are high in WWE. Vince is still on commentary, and Shawn and Triple H play that. It's one of the last nights Vince ever did commentary, was that night. I think he was on commentary once or twice before Survivor Series, and he would never return to the booth. You know, and doing little things like that was incredible to me. So when you try to redo that or rehash it in later years, it's not going to be as good because you've already seen it. Doesn't matter the TV rating. It's about what's old and new. That's it. And I've always felt that way about the Attitude Era, is that I was lucky. I got to see all that cool shit for the first time. You know, but now the younger generation comes around, you know, and they want to see great stuff, and they think, you know, a TV rating is really going to make or break a product. It's not. And 12 years ago, when I started doing YouTube, a lot of people felt that way, that PG was the problem. John Cena catering to kids was the problem. I saw somebody on Twitter, I forget the dipshit's name, but he was criticizing AEW for not making stars that kids can look up to. And he showed a picture of a little kid dressed from head to toe in Roman Reigns gear and a video of him screaming out and professing his love for his tribal chief. I love to see that. I've always loved to see kids look up to wrestlers. But the fact that things have gotten so tribal now between WWE and AEW fans, the fact that people are using WWE catering to kids as a positive is hilarious to me. Because when I started doing YouTube, WWE having characters that catered to kids was the worst thing in the world. There was nothing worse than that, than having John Cena come out and kiss the babies and do the Make-A-Wish and be so PG with his shitty, childlike promos and all that stuff. It was the worst thing. We need a wrestling company for adults. And now we have it. But they're so damn tribal. They got such a stick up their ass about AEW. Now they're going to pretend, all of a sudden, not having a John Cena in your company is a bad thing. Boy, fans are versatile. Fickle, I think Bryan Danielson used to call them. I believe is the word he used. So I don't think at the end of the day, TV-14 or TV-PG being in the corner of a 2 or 3 hour show filled with uninspiring, redundant nonsense is going to make any difference in the WWE's product. Right now, they got a crazy-year-old kook, a crazy 73-year-old kook, paying out $12.5 million to women over the past 16 years to shut him up for fucking them. Get him out of that creative role. Get him away from the pencil and the books and from deciding who gets pushed, who doesn't. See how the product improves then. Probably won't improve that much, but at least you'll get rid of some of the craziness. Some of the, late hour, last minute freakouts, tearing up the script 90 seconds before we go live. That type of shit. You get rid of that, you might reduce the stress of the rest of the people in charge, the creative team that aren't always walking around on fucking eggshells and have to cater to the whims of a maniac. Get him out of there and see if things can come together a little bit more. You know, there'll be a little bit more cohesiveness in the writing team. Everybody's not all so fucking goddamn tense all the time. And see what that does. Fuck the rating. So WWE's problems run much deeper than that, I think. But if they did move the TV rating to TV-14, I'm certainly not against it. Don't get me wrong here at all. I think that's a good move. I think the product, all the wrestling product, should be at least TV-14. You're simulating fighting. You know, how many times have we seen 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids pile driving their little infant brother and killing them? You know, so I mean, maybe this should be something that's a little bit more, you know, adult oriented, while also having role models that kids can look up to. I know Bianca Belair, to single her out, I think is somebody that's an excellent role model for young girls. And that's why I worry that we could, because Bianca Belair, I'm a ridiculously massive fan of. I worry that WWE is going to really hesitate to ever move her out of her character. I've been pitching a character change for Bianca Belair for about a year now. I wanted Becky Lynch to cut her hair, cut her fucking braid off, and then Bianca, you know, kind of changes her a little bit, makes her a little bit more hardcore, a little bit more edgy, because she's big and strong. She could be able to manhandle and mangle anybody she wanted by the looks of her. You know, so I would like to see her with a touch more of a killer instinct, because I think she could be a badass and a fucking killer. And somebody that could be, you know, a believable person to beat Ronda Rousey. But, I mean, if every entrance and everything she does is just going to be the fucking hair twirl, I love her, but that's doesn't allow you any room, you know, to grow in my mind. And I worry that everybody eventually turns heel or babyface or goes in the other direction. Every character does that. But when you find somebody that does so heavily connect with the kids, you know, it is hard to, from a business standpoint, to want to move away from that. But if they did it with Bayley, I think they can do it with Bianca. So, you know, in the end, we'll see what happens on the TV-14 front. But it would be nice if they started going to TV-14. I'd have no issue with it. I think it's time. I think enough time has passed now. Like I said, I understand in 2007 the decision to go in that direction, but, you know, 15 years, people forget about shit. So, you know, WWE's got a lot more problems now, and the move to TV-14 isn't one that I think would affect them negatively anymore, where I think years ago maybe it would have. But it's been 15 years now, so might be time to change it up. Speaking of changing things up, Sasha Banks might be changing wrestling promotions. From what we can tell, she's all but gone from WWE. It really does appear that she is officially gone from WWE, although WWE has not officially announced her release. Neither has she. So there was talk about her lawyers trying to get her out of her deal. I mean, if she really does want to leave, and her contract's coming up soon anyway, this is just going to be a matter of spite. You know, if WWE just says, no, we want to keep her under contract to keep her away from the competition for as long as we can, then she might have to fight them a little bit. But if she's steadfast in her stance, you know, and she means it, she goes, look, I don't care what happens with my contract or what. All I can tell you is one thing: I will never wrestle for them again. If they want to just make me wait, you know, and breach my contract, or make me, you know, wait out some sort of penalty or no compete or whatever, I'll do it. All I know is I ain't never getting in the ring again. It depends on what her stance is. Maybe she's still open to come back or whatever. I know that was some early rumors that the reason WWE wasn't announcing her release is because they were hoping things would blow over. They would be able to get her back and work things out with her. Doesn't appear like that's the case. Same thing with Naomi. Looks like she might be gone as well, although I still would be really surprised if she left based on her, you know, family connections in the company. She seems like somebody that's better suited for WWE. I feel like if Naomi went to AEW, she'd get the Ruby Riott treatment. She'd come in great, probably win a battle royal or something. Everybody'd be excited to see her, but like almost instantly she wouldn't be pushed as a big deal at all. Where Sasha Banks is a completely different story. So there's some early rumblings of you know, her being available in 2023. I think if Sasha Banks wrestles for a company that's not WWE, that will not be until 2023. I don't see that happening this year unless WWE just really just lets her go free and clear, I think the release has probably already happened, and she probably already has some chunk of time that she has to wait. Now, she is allowed to do other appearances. As a matter of fact, she's going to be appearing at the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo August 6th and 7th. And according to Fightful Select, her asking price for non-wrestling appearances is $30,000, which a lot of fans, for some reason, had a big issue with. I have no issue with that. I have no issue with someone knowing their worth. I have no issue with somebody who became a big star and is now going to live the life of one. You want me? Got to pay me $30K. I ain't doing it for a penny less because I don't need the money. And there will be people who'll pay that. Sure. What do you care? What do you care if somebody pays that money to Sasha Banks? If she, if she's going to generate, depending on what kind of promotion this is, what kind of an appearance this is, but if her addition and appearance is going to bring in an extra $100,000 in revenue or ticket sales or something like that, she absolutely does deserve $30K. So, I think that's a really weird thing to get mad about. I saw a lot of people getting pissed, and then of course the Sasha stands are all fucking nuts. So then they all came out, just like this little mini stupid war happening on social media. But I'm like, no fan should care at all unless you are just incredibly sad, insecure, and jealous 24/7. There should be really no reason why you would take any issue with a Sasha Banks asking price. Are you booking her? Is she coming to your house to have lunch? No. So what the fuck does it matter to you? Don't worry about it. Let these stars handle their own business. They don't need help from you. That's what I want to say to these people. So anyway, I kind of believe she's gone. I really hope she is. I really love that WWE had one of their major stars get fed up and say, this is bullshit. I'm sick and tired of getting jerked around. I wish this would happen more often. Fuck all that unprofessional shit. You don't know what you're talking about. When you're backstage and you're dealing with this amount of, just creative bullshit to where you're constantly being messed with, you're not taken seriously, you're being told different things, you're being lied to. This is your career. This is your body that you're going out and taking bumps, putting miles on your body every night. And that's what I've been complaining about a lot of the WWE talent, is I feel bad that a lot of times when you watch Raw and SmackDown, these are matches that are just meaningless. They're just time-filling matches. Every bump, every suplex, it's just another 5 minutes off your career, it's an hourglass, the time's ticking. And I would be really insulted, if I'm a hardworking piece of talent who, spends 24 hours a day maintaining my physique, doing what I'm paid to do, trying to be the best at what I can be, practice as much as I can, and really try to get better and better every day. And you're taking it seriously, but the company you're working for isn't taking you seriously, and they can just book you, change their mind, throw you over here. Oh, let's just do that. Whether they treat their careers and their lives and their bodies with zero respect at all. And I've always had a problem with that. I'll be watching Raw sometimes. I'm like, why is this match even happening? Why are we even doing this? These two people just wrestled the last 3 weeks in a row, and it's just because the show's 3 hours fucking long. So you got to, keep doing rematches and rematches and rematches. Since Cody Rhodes came into the company, he worked with Seth 23 nights in a row or something like that on the house show loop or whatever. He's been in WWE since WrestleMania. I think he's worked with 3 opponents, Seth and The Miz and Kevin Owens or something. So I like that you have talent that will balk at that. I have no issue with Sasha Banks doing that at all, just like I have no issue with WWE being a little bit pissed about that. We talked about it when we discussed Sasha Banks when all this happened. I said, I kind of don't hold either party responsible here. I don't blame WWE for taking her out of the intro, because you have to look at it from their perspective. Even though I completely agree with any talent that wants to walk away from WWE's creative stupidity, I will always take the side of them. I can't sit there and pretend that WWE just shouldn't be mad about that. Sure, they should. They should be pissed. In their minds, one of their talent walked out on an advertised match. That's unforgivable. So if they want to yank her out of the intro, or if they want to remove her from parts of DVDs or interviews or I shouldn't say DVD anymore, or documentaries or interviews, YouTube clips, website shit, whatever. I believe she still is on the alumni page. I'm not sure what's going on the website. But if they want to remove her from stuff, that's not something that Sasha Banks fans have any right to get mad about. You should expect that. What would you just expect WWE? Well, okay, you don't want to work here anymore? Okay, fine, go to AEW, have fun. Oh, you can keep your name and your music too. We don't care. Come on now. So, of course, WWE's going to be pissed, and they have every right to be. Just like Sasha Banks has every right to be pissed and frustrated with them for jerking her ass around all the time. So you can look at it both ways. You don't have to be, so black and white on this. I'm glad that Sasha Banks left and said, fuck you guys, I'm done with this stupid shit, and I'll do whatever I have to do to get out of this contract, but I promise you I ain't never working here again. I appreciate that. There is one possible swerve, though, I wanted to mention. I thought about this last night. Maybe there's a chance of this. I don't think so. But maybe there's like a sliver of chance or a 5 or 10% chance that this is WWE's counter to AEW and MJF. This similar situation with these guys, with MJF, of course, Double or Nothing. I was there in Vegas for that, and there was the rumors rumbling all weekend long around the casinos and the hotels and stuff about MJF missing some sort of autograph signing, fallout with Tony Khan, might not even make the show, and then he came out, did his match with Wardlow, cut the promo on Dynamite, and then left. And we haven't really heard. AEW, to their credit, have done a great job of really not letting the fans dig up what the truth here is. I thought it would be impossible to pull something like this off in modern times. It was hard enough to do it when they tried to pull this shit with CM Punk in 2011. Doing it now just seems like there's way too many people in the know. Somebody's going to be clued in or leak what's going on. And even though I think we can all agree it's a work, they're doing great by just keeping him off TV. I like how the fans are mad now. He's been off TV forever. They're just mad because they don't know what's going on. They're pissed that they don't know what's going to happen. They feel like they're less of a wrestling fan or something. And I remember, because I'm old, back in 2011 when I was in my late 30s, or mid-30s, excuse me, when CM Punk left after Money in the Bank, blew Vince McMahon the kiss, put the belt in the refrigerator when he went home, that whole deal. A lot of fans had the same opinion. We all felt like the biggest problem with that and where they dropped the ball is bringing back CM Punk too quick. He came back way too quick. I think it was the following week, right? So Money in the Bank would have been Sunday. I don't think he appeared on that week's Raw the next night, but then it was the following week where Rey Mysterio won the title and then John Cena won the title or whatever the hell happened there, and then CM Punk came out and did the double title stare down with John Cena. So that was only like 1 or 2 weeks max. I think it was only 1. And a lot of fans were like, that was way too fast. You should have sold this. You should have had CM Punk, you should have let him make an appearance somewhere. I think he did make an appearance at a convention or something, but it wasn't enough. They should have let him go to Ring of Honor for a night or something like that, or just do something, to where he can make an appearance and just try to sell that it's not a work a little bit longer than they did. And fans actually complained about that. Where now that MJF has been gone for so long, this doesn't make any sense. Guys, you're just, oh my God, fans sometimes just, you can't win with them. So I like that they're taking their time with MJF. I am in no rush to see this guy back. He can come back at fucking Christmas, if for all I care. I want to see him come back when I am the least expecting it, So I think that's all being done really well on their part, even though the fans are, I'm starting not to care anymore. I'm like, well, the whole point of this is to make you not know what's going on. So the reason you're not caring is because you're not smartened up, and that makes fans mad, to not know ahead of time what's going to happen. Isn't that weird? So with Sasha Banks, I just wonder if there's a possibility or a chance that maybe this is all a big work and it's WWE's counterpunch to what's going on with MJF. And if WWE has any internal knowledge of what's going on with MJF, like let's say they have a pretty good idea when MJF will come back to the AEW scene, maybe somebody in WWE can hint him or as a friend in AEW, and they get some sort of knowledge about it. They can jump the gun on AEW and bring Sasha Banks back like the week before MJF is scheduled to come back and completely steal his thunder away. Or have MJF wait until MJF comes back in AEW, and then the very next available show in WWE, Sasha Banks just hits the ring. After months of us believing that she's been gone and long gone from WWE, gonna sign with AEW sometime in 2023, and she shows back up around Survivor Series or something completely random, completely unannounced, attacks a champion. Maybe if they do the Survivor Series double champion thing, she attacks the 2 women champions in the ring and holds up both belts as the show goes off the air or something. That probably wouldn't be the main event, but something like that. And it's like, holy shit, completely taking away all the thunder from MJF. And then WWE gets all the credit and the praise. Wow, they had us going. We all thought she was all but gone. They walked out. We've heard nothing. Looks like she's been released. She's got an asking price for bookings. She's making an appearance at a Comic-Con. Maybe she does a couple of other things. And then she shows back up on WWE TV when nobody expected it, taking all the thunder away from MJF. So I suppose there's a small chance that could be the case. But I don't think it is. So we'll monitor the Sasha Banks situation. Like we talked about earlier, she has not been officially released from WWE, and that might be on purpose. You know, WWE probably is pretty pissed off at Sasha Banks, and just announcing a Sasha Banks release is going to give her a shit ton of press. Her name is going to be trending all over the place. Every goddamn one of us is going to come up here and make a YouTube video about it, and it's going to be Sasha Banks, Sasha Banks, Sasha Banks all across the news. When's she going to go to AEW? This is fucking great, and it's just going to get the fans talking. WWE might not want to give her the satisfaction of that publicity. So they're just going to quietly release her and not say a word, which they have every right to do. I don't think there's any law or rule that says they have to officially announce releases on their website or on Twitter. They don't have to. And maybe they made Sasha Banks sign an NDA before she left. You can't say if you're released or not. I don't know. But I think that if WWE came out with an official announcement, people are going to be going nuts for Sasha Banks on social medias. You know what I mean? So we will monitor the whole situation there. Before we get into Ric Flair, I want to go over here to the chat and knock out a couple of super chats that have been rolling in, and make sure also that I don't miss any of them. Spaz is here. Thanks so much, dude, for that $10. Welcome back as always. Go subscribe to Spaz Phoenix's YouTube channel. Good shit over there, and I'm sure he's going to have some plugs for us here. Hey, Greg, Cat, and Chat, tune into my show. We got my co-host Guapo back to go over Fyter Fest and sort of preview Week 2. I will be previewing Death Before Dishonor, Survivor Series, and Emergence Soon B. And Emergence, okay. For real, B. So I was confused a little bit about Fyter Fest. They were kind of advertising like last night on Rampage's night 2. I was thinking it was like night 1 was one Wednesday and night 2 was the next Wednesday. But I think it's night 1 was Wednesday, last Wednesday. Night 2 was last night. Night 3 is this Wednesday, and I guess what? Night 4 will be next Friday? Something like that. I don't know how the nights all work out. But yeah, please go over to Spaz's channel and check him out. 10 more from him right after that. And for other news, no TV-14 is not a save-all, but I do think it would give better creative team more flexibility to bring the show back. If WWE loses Sasha and Naomi, get Cody and MJF, they won in 2022. Yeah, kind of saying the same thing I was about TV-14. It will allow them a little bit more wiggle room with some stuff, but at the end of the day, isn't going to change the booking or anything. Sasha and WWE getting Cody and MJF. I don't believe WWE is going to get MJF. Something just tells me he's going to be sticking around in AEW. They did get Cody, which turned out to be a huge win. Sasha Banks, however, I think can be equal for AEW as Cody was. I think Sasha Banks can be equal to the women's roster as Cody was to the men's, because I didn't even think Cody would have this big of an impact on the main roster, on the men's roster, because there's already, some pretty good main event caliber names on there. But once you saw what WWE's intent was with Cody Rhodes, he was like instantly one of the top stars on his first night. So Sasha Banks will give AEW that very same boost, because their women's division has been improving in terms of the talent, but it has not been improving too well in terms of the booking. And as we've seen with Ruby Riott and Athena, although I think Ruby Riott is a better example of, because Athena hasn't been there that long yet, but Ruby Riott coming in, doing essentially nothing right from, out of the gate. She got custom theme song. She got a live entrance from Rancid at Double or Nothing. And, she won the Battle Royal when she came in, and she's won a couple of matches, but largely she hasn't been viewed or pushed or presented as a big deal at all. Neither has Athena as of yet. However, I think personally Sasha Banks will be a whole different story. I don't think, even with the problems that the women's division has in AEW, I don't think Tony Khan would Ruby Riott Sasha Banks or Ruby Soho Sasha Banks. I think Sasha would come in immediately as an equal or greater to Britt Baker, and she would become the absolute center of that women's division. And I think her and Britt could have a hell of a run together, because Britt's the big dog, Britt's the top star, Britt's the Charlotte there. So Sasha Banks going over there, I think this would be some really, really interesting matches. You want to know another match I think would be interesting? Sasha Banks and Ty Conti. Just think about that one for a minute. So Sasha going to AEW would be huge, and I think that she will want to wrestle. She's a wrestler first and foremost. I do believe Sasha could be a crossover star. I know she's done the Mandalorian or whatever the fuck it is, so she's had a little bit of a taste of that. But I think in the end, she probably wants to remain in a wrestling ring and still continue to do that. And if you're not going to do that for WWE, where the hell are you going to do it? She doesn't, Japan just doesn't seem like the place for her to me. I think that Sasha Banks, if you want to go anywhere in North America and work, there's only one other option other than WWE, and that's AEW. And the boost and the name recognition that she would bring, or the recognition, I should say, not name recognition, but recognition she would bring to the AEW women's roster would be tremendous. It would be their biggest get. Maybe not as big as a Danielson or a Punk, but as big as a Danielson and Punk in terms of the women's division. Maybe not overall in AEW. I still think Danielson and Punk and Mox are the three big gets for them, with Sasha Banks maybe being number 4. But in terms of the women's division, she's going to be the biggest person they've ever brought in, and she's going to help balance out that side of the roster, you know, with the women, adding another big name. Of course, she's going to have to be somebody else other than Sasha Banks. Mercedes, is it Verando or Versado? I don't even know her last name. She could come in as Mercedes, although we have Mercedes Martinez over there. Or she could just change it up. She could change it to Mercedes Banks. Mercedes Banks. Maybe spell it B-A-N-X with a big X, like a DX, big green X on the end. Mercedes Banks. Mercedes Banks would work. I don't think Sasha Verardo, or if she kept Sasha, or if she just came in as Sasha. I believe she could. I don't think you can trademark an individual name. I don't think. So she could probably just come in as Sasha, but I'm not totally sure on that. So we'll see when she comes in, if she just wants to go by her real name to establish herself with her real name. That way, if she does go somewhere else, she can, you know, continue to use that or whatever. If Jon Moxley ever does one day go back to the WWE and reform the Shield, do y'all think he would be Jon Moxley, or do you think they would actually make him Dean Ambrose? Or do you think Moxley would say, look, if I resign with you guys, I ain't Dean Ambrose. I am Jon Moxley. I'm coming back as Jon Moxley. Take me or leave me. I think that would be cool to see Ambrose come back to WWE, but come back as Moxley one day down the road after Vince is gone, and maybe some of the shit that really drove Moxley nuts. Although based on his book, I don't think he's going back to WWE ever, based on some of the things that he said in there. Tasha Banks for Sasha Banks. Keith Lee is Uncle Phil. Philip Banks. Right on. I do like Mercedes Banks, though. I think that sounds good. What was Viv? She should be Vivian Banks. Aunt Viv. That's who she should be. Which Aunt Viv did y'all like better, the first one or the second one? I think most people like the OG Aunt Viv, but she didn't get along with them. I liked them both. Both Aunt Vivs were good. Where did we leave off? Let's talk about Ric Flair. So Ric Flair recently, I don't know when this actually happened or when the first week of this was, but fans were pointing out that Ric Flair's woo has been put back in to the WWE signature intro. Now, they took it out after all of the wonderful stories about Ric Flair came out, just heartwarming stuff in the Dark Side of the Ring Plane Ride from Hell episode. WWE distanced themselves from him. He has since had his last match booked for later this month. That's going to be a big promotion of StarCast and all that stuff. A lot of big names and legends will be a part of that. We've been seeing him work out and train a little bit with Jay Lethal for this thing. Dude's got a fucking pacemaker and a bunch of artificial body parts and plastics in him and stuff, and he's somehow going to be wrestling a match. And it seems like, for the most part, you know, a lot of that stuff is, you know, blown over. I still think Ric Flair is just not a very desirable person to me. He's just not, never really has been. And he's been put back into the WWE intro, and he got really happy about that. He tweeted, and as only Ric Flair can do. I don't know if his fingers are too big or what's going on, but he's always tweeting with every word capitalized. He's got periods misplaced. In the middle of a sentence, there'll just be a period there, and then the sentence will continue. And I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm reading. But Flair thanks Vince McMahon, thanks WWE for giving him, get this, his livelihood back. I was heartbroken and devastated when you took me out of the intro, but now you've given my livelihood back. You know, if I'm a wrestler, I'm going to be pretty proud of being in the WWE intro. I ain't going to lie. But for somebody of Ric Flair's stature and how long he's been wrestling and the name and the household name that he's created for himself, this is what he hangs his hat on, the fucking WWE intro. Who cares what Vince McMahon and the fucking yahoos in that company think of you? And And he said he was heartbroken and devastated about it, but now he's back. He's so happy to be back in the intro. He's so happy. But he didn't stay happy for long because Ric Flair, like I said, for all of his accomplishments, for being the greatest wrestler possibly that has ever lived in terms of an overall package, in-ring persona, flamboyance, charisma, all that stuff, he really did have no equal. And you would think for all of those accomplishments in wrestling, he wouldn't be such an insecure little bitch about everything. The way he's all up Becky Lynch's ass, about the man thing. This guy I think he's getting old and senile, and I think he's starting to care about shit that doesn't matter. And I'm no fan of Chris Jericho these days, or actually I am. I just don't like a few of Chris Jericho's, let's just say, beliefs. Let's put it that way. But Ric Flair took huge exception to Jericho's Living Legends promo on Dynamite, where he's calling himself the living legend now. He already has a Wizard jersey on sale on AEW Shop. Now he's calling himself the living legend, and Flair had something else to say pretty nasty to Jericho a couple of weeks ago. Then he went out of his way. Jericho, I don't believe, made mention to Flair at all in his promo. It had nothing to do with Flair. He was just accepting Eddie Kingston's Barbed Wire Everywhere match. So Jericho just calls himself the living legend, and Flair takes the time to tweet out, "You'll never be a living legend. You're a legend in your own mind," and just completely shits on Chris Jericho. And I'm like, Ric Flair, do you have literally anything better to do right now? I would hope you would. You're in your 70s. This is what you choose to waste your time on. This is how you choose to spend your time. By responding to a promo had nothing to do with you and getting all butthurt because Jericho referred to himself as a living legend. There's been a lot of living legends in wrestling, Larry Zbyszko, Bruno Sammartino, and there's been a lot of nature boys too, Rick. That's what cracked me up about Ric Flair getting mad about Becky Lynch using the man. I'm like, oh, you got a problem with somebody using someone else's nickname? That's interesting. And here he's mad at Jericho for calling himself a living legend because a couple of other people have called themselves living legends. Why is Ric Flair allowed to do these things and nobody else is? He's literally criticizing people for the same shit that he did. Eric Bischoff tends to do this. Every criticism that Butthurt Bischoff has had about AEW have been about things that he was the biggest offender of. Nobody did these things worse than Bischoff when he was at the head of WCW, and now he complains that AEW does some of these same things. The fuck is swimming around inside the noodle of these people? My God. So Flair has some issue with Jericho, and he actually took the time to tweet that out when he should be practicing not dying in his last match in a couple of weeks. That should be his number one priority. When I get in the ring in front of all those people for my last match in a couple of weeks, don't die. That's what I'd be focused on. I don't give a fuck what Chris Jericho was saying. And Ric Flair, I always, remember like 20 years ago, he's told the story in like interviews and documentaries and whatnot about how he had these like confidence issues when WCW closed down. He was brought in by WWE, and I just didn't have the confidence. And then finally he went to WrestleMania, faced The Undertaker, and got his confidence back. He's always seemed like weak and cowardly to me. He's always given off this vibe, and he shouldn't be that way. This guy's traveled the world. He's worked and fought some of the toughest men that this business has ever seen. He's been a part of every generation, every era, every company. And to be this insecure, weak, pathetic is sad. Grow the fuck up, dude. You're Ric Flair. Where's your confidence? You should not give a shit if Becky Lynch calls herself the man, or if Chris Jericho is a living legend, or what anybody else does. You owe the wrestling world nothing. You've proven yourself time and time again. And the reason I call him a coward is because he always backs down to Hulk Hogan. Do you ever notice that? This is a guy that seems to be really protective of his spot and of his nicknames and of who's better. But when it came to Hogan, he completely backed down. Hogan's the best. He's gone out on interviews saying Hogan's the best, Hogan's the best, Hogan's the best. You would think somebody like Ric Flair would be annoyed that Hogan's the best. I'm better. I'm a better wrestler. I'm a better talker. I'm not on the juice. Hogan's just this big over-the-top, muscular, like cartoon superhero type of character, that really at the end of the day doesn't have a whole lot of wrestling ability. he's got decent psychology, but from an athletic standpoint, Hogan can't have a super exciting match where Flair is all over the place. He's backflipping over the fucking turnbuckle and he's going all over the place. Not only are his promos entertaining, the build up to matches are entertaining, but the work he puts in the ring is also equally entertaining. If I'm Ric Flair, I'm like, I am so much better than you, Hogan. It's a disgrace that you're the top star this business has ever seen, because I am 100 times better than you. But he never admits it. He always just sucks Hogan's dick, and I don't understand why. Maybe they're bros. I'm glad that they're friends and they don't have some ugly rivalry, but I just don't understand why Flair is so defensive and he lashes out at everybody else. But when it comes to Hogan, he's like, okay, you're the best, Hulk, whatever. I'm like, grow a set, Ric Flair. So his last match is coming up. That should be fun, and I will definitely watch a clip of it for free when I can find one. Let's talk about Big E for a second. He suffered, what seems to be a setback, but also seems to be kind of positive news at the same time. Now, he spoke with TMZ Sports this past week and let us know that the docs have decided to not even look at his neck or reevaluate his neck until he's reached the 1-year mark of the injury. And I think it's only been a few months now. I don't remember when he was injured. When was this? February? Something like that? I don't remember. So it hasn't been long yet. So it's not going to be until 2023 until they even look at the neck. Now, he had said he had not had, the bone had not started growing yet, but the doctors were telling him that surgery was not going to be necessary. This can all be rehabbed, but it has to rehab a specific way if he ever expects to get in the ring again. So they won't even agree to look at his neck until a year has passed. So that already takes us into 2023. From there, they're going to have to decide what more is left to do, how much more rehab is left. He was told that he is expected to make a full recovery. However, it is not a done deal that he will ever get in the ring again. And he spoke about this. And, when you hear, and we've heard this from him a couple times, he was doing a video. He sent out a video on social media like one day after his accident with the neck brace. I feel great. I'm good. 2 days after that, he was going for a walk. He can't even move his fucking neck, and he's still just happy, cracking jokes, remaining unbelievably positive, at least publicly. And, here was a lot of the same thing. And, he, I guess, acknowledged the possibility that he might not wrestle again. And he said if he doesn't, he's completely content with that. And he was kind of brought up and, as someone and raised to accept whatever comes, whatever life throws at you without complaint. And he appreciates how, fortunate and blessed he's been so far to have the career that he's had, to make the money. And I, for one, I am so happy because Big E's one of our favorite people here on the channel. He's in the intro. I was so happy that he got that WWE title. He deserved it. He's entertaining as fuck. And they finally gave it to him. We could argue that his run wasn't the best run, but it was a run, and I'm glad that his name is in the record books as not the Universal Champion, but the WWE Champion. To me, that belt's more important. History goes much further back, and, and it puts, the championship belt, around a very, very great, good, charismatic, and fun black wrestler, because WWE has not had a ton of those in their wrestling lineage, and he's one of the best ones, especially the modern era, in terms of his charisma, his attitude, just the fun-loving nature that he has, and the dude's a pretty good wrestler, and he's a fucking beast. Jesus Christ, dude could bench press a bus, and everything about him is always a joy to watch, and I just admire the hell out of him for how he's looking at this potentially really, grim situation and, taking it as a positive. He's going to be doing some work, helping coaching a little bit down in NXT, I believe, SummerSlam weekend. So they're giving him some things to do because I believe the neck brace is off, I think. And he can do stuff and walk around. He just can't work. So they're going to put him to work, put him in NXT. He can evaluate talent, maybe help out there wherever he can. We saw a couple of years ago when Jason Jordan had to leave the ring, very young. I don't know if he'll ever come back, but he's been working as a backstage agent or producer or something like that ever since. So maybe that's something that's in Big E's future, but, I really hope that he does get back to the ring. And my heart of hearts, I just don't think, is unfair as the life in the universe can be sometimes. I think that it would be almost too much to bear for the universe not to give Big E a chance to get back in the ring. It's just if anybody deserves it, if karma ever does, belongs with someone, it's Big E, for all of his positivity, for all he does, for his attitude, for how much he's beloved by his peers and the fans and everybody. One of the nicest guys in the business. For the love of God, let this guy get back in the ring. But the fact that he approaches this with such positivity, really not knowing, and isn't going to know for sure for a long time. That's a long time to have this weight on your shoulders, for this to be hanging over your head, not knowing if you're going to wrestle again, and you're not going to know for sure if you're going to wrestle again for close to another year. It's going to be a long year to sit there and wait and just wonder what my future holds. So the fact that he is just seems to be so humble, so positive through all of this, doesn't seem to be bitter. Ridge Holland is a lucky guy. Ridge Holland is lucky that Big E is the one he dropped on his head, because I'm sure Ridge Holland feels already ridiculously guilty about this and remorseful, and he probably feels like shit. I know I would if I was a wrestler. We saw what D'Lo had to go through, after what happened to Draws and stuff. I wouldn't, and Owen after what happened to Austin. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. I would not want to be the wrestler that ended the career of another wrestler, especially if I'm a rookie. Ridge Holland's just a young guy. So, I think that without knowing any conversations that Ridge and Big E have had, without even knowing these details, I can guarantee you Big E has told Ridge Holland time and time again, don't sweat it. It was an accident. It happens. Don't blame yourself. I will 1,000,000% guarantee you that's what Big E told him without knowing a thing about it for sure. He has to, because that's just the way Big E is. So Ridge Holland's lucky, that you're going to drop anybody on their head, Big E might want to be one of the best guys to do it. I'm sure a lot of guys are going to understand that wrestling is dangerous, and there's going to be accidents, and nobody's going to be really bitter or really harbor any feelings. But, even in an industry where these things are a possibility, if somebody ended my career, I'd be pretty pissed, So anyway, we hope to get Big E back, but we're not going to know anything until 2023, which kind of sucks. Bayley is basically all set and ready to return. She is rehabbed, ready to rock and roll. She just passed her 1-year mark of being out with her injury, and it seems like WWE might just be waiting for the right time to bring her back now. When will that time be? In my mind, that time is SummerSlam. I think last year we had the return of Becky Lynch. I think this year they will do the same thing with Bayley. What she will do there, I have no idea. I don't know if she'll crash a women's title match. Possibly she will. I don't think she'll come out and win a title unless we have somebody, get COVID or somebody can't make the show, like Sasha Banks couldn't make the show last year. And maybe Bayley replaces him. It would be weird if Bayley came in and did the same thing that Becky Lynch did last year and beat Bianca Belair by surprise, and then you could just run that whole thing back. That entire angle you did with Bianca and Becky, you could just do it with Bayley and Bianca instead. Might be fun. So that could be one place that we could see her. But I'll be happy to hear suggestions for when to bring her back. Could just wait for TV to do it. Night after SummerSlam would also be a good spot. Night after, or I guess 2 nights after SummerSlam, Saturday this year. So I suppose you could do that on Monday Night Raw. Or just bring her back at the pay-per-view. And right now, the card might need a little boost. And the card might need something fun to happen. So Bayley coming back, maybe even Edge coming back as well on that pay-per-view could be fun. We'll see. Before we get into my next thing, let me knock out a couple more supers. Are these all from Spaz? Spaz, the only one supering today? You're the best, Spaz. Thank you so much, and appreciate five more from you. Fresh Prince of AEW. Will is Swerve Scott. Carlton is Gresham. That would work. Uncle Phil, Lee, Jazz is Max Caster, and Hillary is Kiera Hogan. That would work. Jazz is Max Caster. That's awesome. I hope Keith Lee throws out Max Caster out the front door. When I was on my Hawaiian vacation, we were talking with my family. We were talking about Fresh Prince of Bel-Air for some reason, and my sister goes, "Greg, did you know that where they throw Jazz out of the house, they only shot that one time and they just replay the same one over and over?" And I'm like, yeah, I can believe that. I wasn't surprised about it at all. She goes, well, they did it once and it wasn't supposed to be used in every show, and then, they would splice it in certain times. And I was like, yeah, I think I would only expect Jazz to take one bump on that. They wouldn't reshoot that every time they used it. But I thought that was funny that she tried to give me a fun fact, and I'm like, nah, that makes sense. Wasn't surprised. Also, 2 more from you, dude. Appreciate that. Table for 3. Vince, Heyman, and Bischoff. I used to think it was so surreal on WWE when Heyman and Bischoff were both there, and they would do, Vince in the ring with Heyman and Bischoff. I'm like, to me, that was mind-blowing. You know, younger fans won't understand how crazy that was of a sight to see. To see that would be the equivalent now of Vince and Tony Khan and Gato in the ring or something like that. It was just really crazy to see back then and to experience. Oh, Barry'd be cool. Bayley coming back on Monday, challenging every champion in the company, beating them all in a minute, and being undefeated for the rest of her life. Okay. Yeah, I miss Bayley a lot. I'm ready for her to come back. And if that's the way you brought her back, don't you think that would get fans a little bit mad? She runs all the belts. You know, so yeah, the fans would be mad, but I'd be fine with it because what do I care? Let's talk a little bit about WWE's new biographies and documentaries on A&E. Now, A&E and WWE have partnered up again. Last year, they did the Legends biography series. I think it was 6 or 7 episodes on that on Bret Hart. I did a full review of that show last year. They also did Roddy Piper, Mick Foley, Ultimate Warrior, Shawn Michaels, Booker T, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Macho Man Randy Savage. Season 2 kicked off this past Sunday with Episode 1 on The Undertaker. Future episodes coming up for the biography series are going to be featuring Kurt Angle, DX, the Bellas, I'll be skipping that one, Rey Mysterio, Goldberg, Edge, and Lex Luger. Now, it was 1 year ago, July 4th of last year, July 4th of 2021, the WWE announced the Lex Luger Icons documentary. That Icon series that they have, I think they've only released like 2 episodes of that. Yoko and maybe somebody else. And Luger was supposed to be the next one. And then they canceled it for some reason. They didn't air it when they were supposed to. They were going to postpone it a few weeks, look for a better lead-in, I remember was the story. And now an entire year has gone by, and we still haven't gotten that documentary. Now it looks like a lot of those interviews and footage could potentially now just be merged into the A&E doc, and we will get that full documentary on Luger. It just won't be on Peacock. It will be on A&E instead. So at least we are getting the Luger doc, but it is a year too late, and I'm not sure what week any of these specific wrestlers air. But Undertaker was Episode 1, and this was really well done, you know, but at the end of the day, it was just a really excellent and well-produced retelling of what we already knew. We all know, at least most people do, we all know Undertaker's history. It was some fresh interviews, you know, fresh interviews from Bruce and a lot of other guys, a lot of early footage of Undertaker that I had not previously seen from his basketball days, some photos, some childhood photos, things like that. But in terms of the chronicling of his career, we knew all this stuff. It was very well done, as these biographies tend to be. The star of the show was his mom, who is quite old now, but he was telling stories about her going to one of the matches and trying to fucking jump one of the guys and really fighting for her son. And she seemed to be like a little spitfire. She was really funny. And a lot of people were mentioning her wardrobe, which I thought was hilarious, because every other shot of The Undertaker is that fucking thin blue line shit shirts that he wears, and I'm not surprised at all that The Undertaker has a son named Gunner and Colt. Of course he does. What do you think Gunner and Colt's social media pages are going to look like in a few years? What do you think Colt is going to post on Facebook when he's 20? Those should be some interesting posts, I'm sure. So that was a great episode on The Undertaker, but we've seen a lot of Undertaker stuff recently. We saw that 6-part episode they did a couple of years ago when he retired. We saw him go into the Hall of Fame, and we've seen a lot of Undertaker speaking as Mark Calloway in the last couple of years. So the fact that they did this after everything we've seen just in the last 48 months, it was almost like overkill for me. But I do love The Undertaker's career a lot, and I remember all of it. I was 13 years old when he debuted. Do you hear that? 13. I was a little shit. Couple of hairs on my nuts. I think that was it. I'm 45 in a couple of months. And the fact that he had that run, Paul Heyman on the biography put it best, and it's what I've said when I've talked about The Undertaker. I've said the exact same thing before. I always point to Stone Cold and The Rock, two of the biggest stars of the modern era. How long did their runs last? Austin was on top from 98 to 2001. That's 3 years. The Rock was on top from 98 to 2002. That's 4 years. 4 years was all we got of of Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. Even Hogan, his runs were separated. His overall run was long, but his run in WWE was, from 84 to 92. That's a pretty long run, 6 years. WCW was from like 94 to 98. It was only 4, and then he came back for another short stint in WWE at the end, but he's had the longevity of having the Hulk Hogan name and being able to make appearances, but his run on top, was generally short, where Undertaker has a completely different type of, career path. He's been that one character for so long, wrestling, in Texas, then to WCW, then coming into WWE and spending the next 30 years there as one character, always at the top of the card, always wrestling at WrestleMania, always has major angles and storylines to do, whether it's for a championship or whether he's going up against a monster heel or something like that. He always had stuff to do in the company. And that's something that, is probably never going to be matched, is having a run like that. So he does deserve a lot of credit for that. And it was a very good first episode of Biography. Second one airs tomorrow, probably at the same time we're going to be doing our watch-along. So I'm not sure who tomorrow's episode is on. But if I get a chance to watch it tomorrow night, I'll talk about it on the Raw review on Monday. Also, A&E has debuted its new rivalry series. Episode 1 was featuring Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels, and we also have on tap for future episodes Undertaker and Kane, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, and John Cena and Edge. So it looks like only maybe 4 episodes there, unless I'm missing one. But episode 1 was on Bret and Shawn. Just like The Undertaker, we have seen this story retold over and over and over. I have spoken about the screw job many, many times before, in great detail about the screw job, and you guys have heard all of my thoughts. And there's always these little things in the story when we hear about this stuff that I think I've always felt a little bit skeptical about, or it's WWE's retelling of the version because it makes for a better story to tell it this way. And I noticed a couple of holes that they had here. The first thing they mentioned was when Bret Hart was leaving to go to WCW in 97, they made it sound like on the Rivalries doc, or on the Rivals doc, that he made the choice to go to WCW, that he left WWE, defected to WCW while he was still champion. Now, Bret was a part of this, production, so I'm surprised he didn't correct them there. But we all know that night in Madison Square Garden, September 22nd, 1997, the same night Vince McMahon got stunned for the first time, the same night Goldberg debuted on the other show, Vince McMahon and Bret Hart had a meeting in the office at MSG. Vince said, I cannot afford to pay you your 20-year contract. Remember last year when you negotiated that deal with WCW and you signed with me instead? Go back to them and see if you can get that old deal. That was all orchestrated. This is well documented, told over and over and over. But here, for the purposes of this documentary, they tried to make it sound like Bret made the choice, which I guess really he did. I think Vince was like, take a pay cut or go to WCW. So Bret chose to, go where the money was. That's what he should have done. But it was Vince that did the forcing there. It was Vince that did the pushing. It was Vince that decided he no longer wanted to honor the contract. So he didn't do anything. Bret didn't do anything there. So the fact that he had the creative control worked in, he wasn't even supposed to leave anyway. The creative control in his contract should not have been a factor because he wasn't even supposed to leave. If Vince would have never had that conversation with him in Madison Square Garden, Screwjob never would have happened. Or Vince just waited a couple of months to let Bret go. Why it had to be done right there and right then with Bret as your champion is beyond me, because now you put yourself in a position where you got to ask Bret to job to somebody he hates. And one of the big questions I've always had about the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels saga, Bret mentioned this a couple of times in shoot interviews over the years, and I know in WWE's productions, I know he mentioned it in his own DVD, and then that really good sit-down documentary they did with Jim Ross years ago, after Bret came back and Shawn and Bret patched things up, and they talked about the entire situation. Bret has mentioned this a bunch of times, and that is after WrestleMania 12. You guys can't see it, but it's right above my head. I have the plaque and a piece of the ring from WrestleMania 12, the Shawn Michaels autograph thing. Bret says that after the Iron Man match, which they talked extensively about on Rivals, that when when the announcement is being made that Shawn's the new champion, you can see Shawn, and Bret says that Shawn told Earl to tell Bret to get his ass out of the ring. Get the fuck out of the ring. That's what Bret thinks Shawn said. And every time I've heard that, I'm like, I know Shawn was starting to become a pain in the ass in 1996, but his friends were still there. The clique was still intact. He was winning the title in the main event. he's somebody I'm sure that knows that in a real fight would get the absolute shit kicked out of him by Bret Hart if it came to that. At that time in 96, I didn't see there being a reason for Shawn to be a prick to Bret, especially after Bret just gave him his body for an hour. 1997 Shawn, maybe a different story. Even late 96 Shawn might have been a different story. But here in this moment at WrestleMania 12, I always thought that was weird. I'm like, would Shawn really have said that? You know, I know Shawn loves the spotlight, but just never seemed like something that even Shawn would have said. And Shawn's an asshole. And they bring it up here again. And even when you look at Shawn, like they try to show Shawn's mouth moving as he's talking to Earl. And he does say something like out of the ring. You can see his mouth say that. But if you remember, and I've watched this match a million times, they made a big deal about Bret Hart not shaking Shawn's hand. And after the 3 count, Shawn does the thing, and then the music is playing, and Earl has got the belt. And Earl comes up to Shawn to kind of like give him the belt, but Shawn is trying to tell him something, and Earl's kind of hesitant. He hands him the belt and then kind of pulls it back. And what I think they wanted, because we got this perfect camera shot when it happened, what I think the intent was for Earl to present the belt to Shawn with Bret watching. And when Earl was trying to give Shawn the belt, Bret was face down on the mat, selling the super kick. So what I think Shawn was telling Earl, because Shawn has said over and over he doesn't remember saying this. He's not saying he didn't. He just says he doesn't remember it. On the Rivals episode, he says it's all a blur. You know, Shawn's Mr. Christian man now. He wants to tell the truth if he can. This seems like a weird thing to lie about. If he really doesn't, if he said that, he would be like, oh yeah, I said it. He claims he doesn't remember. So what I think Shawn was saying to Earl, because Bret was laying face down and they wanted to get the camera shot of Shawn receiving the belt in front of Bret's face, I think Shawn was telling Earl, wait until he's leaving the ring. And if you read his lips back, he's probably saying that, like, wait until he's getting out of the ring, or just wait until he's leaving the ring, is what I think he was telling Earl. And then, sure enough, Bret gets to his feet. He starts walking to the ropes. He looks right over at Shawn and Earl, and then Earl presents the belt to Shawn. They got the shot they needed. Bret gets to watch that happen. He leaves the ring upset, takes the straps down, peels away in the car. But I think it sounds better for the story for WWE to tell the story that Shawn told Bret to get his ass out of the ring. Even back then, like I said, I'm sure that Shawn was very appreciative of Bret going out there and giving him an hour-long match and passing the belt to him. I don't think at that time the heat was enough to have Shawn say something like that disrespectful towards Bret. And even Bret tells a story himself. He goes, after it, when I leave, I'm leaving for a few months, I'm going to say some things about you in interviews. Let's build this up that we have legitimate heat with each other. So I think this is a lie that became the truth. I don't even think WWE's necessarily lying about this happening. I think they really think that. Or Bret thinks that's what he heard. Because Bret was laying on the mat. He wasn't looking at Shawn. He was face down. And if Shawn says to Earl, wait till Bret's getting out of the ring, maybe Bret heard, tell him to get his ass out of the ring. Maybe Bret just misheard Shawn. And this whole time, this has been a big misunderstanding. And all he did was just hear what Shawn said wrong. But as I've studied this match over and over, and like I said, I'm a Bret versus Shawn connoisseur, this is one thing I call bullshit on. I don't believe Shawn told him to get his ass out of the ring at WrestleMania 12. I think Shawn was telling Earl to wait until Bret's leaving the ring. And this isn't the first time somebody's had to tell Earl this. WrestleMania 6, Hogan and Warrior. Warrior wins the belt. Hogan misses the leg drop, splash, 1, 2, 3. Earl comes in the ring with both belts. Watch it back. Earl comes in the ring with both belts, hands both belts to the Ultimate Warrior. Warrior grabs the Intercontinental and then shoves the Winged Eagle right back in Earl's chest. Like, literally, get that shit out of here. Don't you remember? Hogan is supposed to present this thing to me. Or Earl just didn't know that. But Earl has made that mistake before. So I think Warrior had to check him at WrestleMania 6. No, Hogan's got to give it to me. And I think this was the same thing. I think it was Shawn Michaels knowing that he's supposed to get the belt with Bret watching. Bret's not watching yet. Let's wait a minute. That's all it was. So I think that's a big hole. I don't even know why I'm bringing this up. It's just when I watched it, I'm like, that's bullshit. So I think if WWE ever wants to do another documentary series on Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels, they need to call good mic work, because I will tell them what's right and wrong. So there you go. But anyway, I'm excited to see the rest of these series. They both look pretty good, and they're also very well done. This is the best content WWE produces. I could watch this shit from WWE all day. This is what sets them apart from other wrestling promotions, is their long history and their massive tape library and these great documentaries that they can do on wrestlers and careers and how well produced everything is, the partnerships they do, Peacock and, and A&E. Their DVDs have been fantastic and phenomenal throughout the years. Even though many of them tell them WWE's side of the stories, they're all still very well done. Excuse me. So when it comes to WWE, this is what sets them apart. Their modern product, their current content on Raw and SmackDown, shit, complete shit. But this stuff is really, really good and compelling and fascinating. So I'm excited to see the rest of it. So anyway, there's my thoughts on the first 2 A&E episodes. We'll talk more about that next week as a couple more episodes air. There is some sad news to report coming out of AEW. Conan has confirmed on his most recent podcast that Santana and Ortiz are currently not getting along, and they're not on very good terms. We have heard rumors of this in the past couple of weeks. What issues go on between 2 grown men behind the scenes is not my business at all. They're grown men. They'll handle it themselves. But they are a tag team, and they are currently in AEW. And that is sad that we probably have seen the final days of Proud and Powerful. Now, also, you got to remember, Santana got injured at Blood and Guts. Chris Jericho provided an update and said that Santana will be out for 8 months. But Santana was already teasing that he was leaving AEW soon. I believe at one point, a couple weeks ago, whenever that was, he just made a very short tweet that said 126 days or 100 some amount of days, which would imply that's how many days he's got left on his contract. So if it was 120 days, that puts him at about 4 months until his contract is up. So close to the end of the year, I guess, or probably right around the October-ish when Dynamite started years ago. So his contract apparently is coming up. However, he's also injured. So if he's injured for 8 months, I don't know if he's got to wait. I don't know how this is going to happen. I would hope that Tony Khan, as much as I like Santana, I don't think he's going to be really any sort of a game changer in terms of Tony Khan letting him go and then getting burned by him by going to WWE or something. I wouldn't worry about that. I think if Santana wants out and he's going to be out for 8 months, just cut him loose. Just let him go wherever he wants to go. It's a shame that he blew his knee out the way he did without even getting in the match or really competing in the match. It happened so early. So that's sad for him. I hope whatever is going on behind the scenes between Ortiz and Santana gets repaired in the future. It would be awesome if we saw an LAX or Proud and Powerful reunion down the road in some company somewhere. Maybe during Santana's recovery, things can get smoothed over and worked out with Ortiz. We don't know. But whatever the case is, we wish Santana well. It was heartbreaking to see him get injured, and I've always been a big fan of his a lot. So, sad that things didn't work out for him in AEW. I'm sure he has his reasons. Like we talked about, not every single piece of talent is going to be happy in AEW. I cannot believe they never put the tag belts on these 2 guys. So, Santana's got some issues. You can't blame him if he does. And wherever he goes and whatever he winds up doing, we wish him the best here. Let's see. What else have I got on my list here? Because I got to be done in about half an hour here. So we got to be putting the pedal to the metal. Pat McAfee has recently signed a multi-year extension with WWE. He was already under a multi-year deal. I think it was coming up next year, and signed an extension with them to stick around long-term, which is great. I think Pat McAfee is one of the best personalities in the entire company. He is 10 times better than Corey Graves, and that's a natural match I want to see happen one day. I want to see Pat McAfee beat the fuck out of him because he can. He's a football player. He's way tougher than Corey Graves. Mr. Short Pants with no socks and dress shoes. What a weird-ass look. Anyway, McAfee is going to be around a while. He's working with bum-ass Corbin on SummerSlam. He has got a very infectious personality. He's just got so much energy. This guy has just got, he shoves Monster energy drinks up his ass or something. He's just constantly full of energy. Have you ever seen his podcast? The dude can't even sit down. He's got to be standing up, moving around. He's just like, I don't want to say spazzy, but he's, got a lot of energy, eccentric, and just high energy all the time, high octane. He's always standing up, moving around, fucking twitching and shit. So he's great, and he's amazing on commentary. He's like a color Mauro Ronaldo. Mauro Ranallo was a play-by-play guy, but, Pat McAfee is the color version of that, the color commentary version of that, where he's just jumping out of his fucking seat and going nuts, and him and Michael Cole make such a great pairing. But I also think that Pat McAfee has a lot to offer in the ring. We saw what he can do in the ring with Adam Cole. WWE has really stepped up the game when it comes to celebrities or athletes getting in the ring and performing, because they've had some really good ones, and McAfee has been one of the best. And I am looking forward to his match against bum-ass Corbin. So far, it's a match I'm looking the most forward to, if you can believe that, at SummerSlam. They used to be teammates with the Indianapolis Colts. So having these guys face each other, McAfee last week on his podcast, was still selling the beatdown from Corbin at Money in the Bank, which was great. And I will make a bold prediction right here. I could be way wrong on this, and I don't even care if I am, but I want to make this prediction. I even put it on Twitter so I can retweet it later when it happens. I believe Pat McAfee will win the WWE title. I do. I don't think it's going to be this year or anything. Maybe it could. There's a lot of, stuff going on at the top right now with Roman Reigns and both belts. Brock's back. Cody will be back soon. At some point, you would think they might separate these titles again. And if we get to the point where we have 2 championships, then I'll feel very confident that Pat McAfee will win the WWE title one day. But I think he will. I think he's one guy that I think fans enjoy, they connect with, because he is so charismatic and he's got such a great personality, and he can play a heel and play a babyface very well. A lot of fans respect his, his announcing work, and WWE clearly likes him. Because he was granted, he was a kicker in the NFL, but he seems like he's just kind of tailor-made for wrestling. Now, granted, he's got a lot of other outside interests. He follows regular sports. He follows UFC. He's got his podcast and whatnot and things like that. But he's a name that's recognizable out there. A lot of sports fans know who he is, and wrestling fans now know who he is too. And he seems to like it there. I was worried that someone like him would get fed up, would being screamed at in the microphone by your crazy fucking boss every week or whatever, but Vince seems to like him a lot. He was sitting with the McMahons at the UFC fight. He was sitting between the McMahons and Nick Khan, in the front row of UFC after Money in the Bank, wearing a neck brace, selling the beatdown. He seems to be in good graces with the upper echelon of the company, because if you notice, Michael Cole wasn't at UFC, it was Pat McAfee. Corey Graves wasn't at the UFC, it was Pat McAfee. So they like him, he likes them, seems to be a match made in heaven, and I really hope and think he actually might grab the belt at some point. Speaking of people coming in, WWE is in talks once again, apparently, with Tyson Fury. Every time I see Tyson Fury's name associated with WWE, all I can think about is poor Renee Young, working for these idiots, and her telling the story of Vince McMahon screaming in her ear because she forgot to refer to Tyson Fury as the lineal champion or whatever. What the fuck? Who cares? I don't even follow boxing. I don't give 2 shits. I never see this guy box one time in my life. I didn't even know he retired until I was reading the story a little bit. I've seen him in person. He was at the first ever SmackDown on Fox in LA that I was at a couple years ago, but I never knew who he was. And he's been doing a lot of social media beefing with Drew McIntyre over the past couple of years. And there has been some talks of bringing him in. And Castlevania is coming up in September, and likely Tyson Fury will be a part of that. Now, somebody brought up something interesting. Maybe he could do something with Logan Paul, because Logan Paul is also signed with WWE, and Jake Paul has been bitching about Tommy Fury. I didn't even know Tyson Fury had a brother until I saw the video of Jake Paul bitching at whoever he's supposed to fight in MSG. Apparently it's Tyson Fury's brother, Tommy Fury, who is now backed out of this match with Jake Paul, which is supposed to take place, I think, on August 8th in Madison Square Garden. Jake Paul's got another opponent now, but Tommy Fury had cited visa issues, weight issues, not being able to make the fight. Of course, Jake Paul thinks he's a big coward. There's a lot of heat and turmoil there. So what if the 2 brothers go at it in WWE? Who knows? All I know is I don't have any interest in seeing Tyson Fury in WWE. I only remember him wrestling that one match against Braun Strowman, and it was the ugliest fucking match I've ever seen. I'd rather eat a diarrhea sandwich than watch that thing again. So him coming back to the company is something I have zero interest in. I don't care about him, about Drew McIntyre, about Castlevania, about anything like that. But I certainly don't want him coming in and win the fucking title, because he sucks. So he's big, he's gigantic, that's great. They'll probably immediately put him in the ring with Omos or something, because that's just what they do. But at this point, I like Omos way better than Tyson Fury. So I'm sure we will see that big bald bastard back. I just don't care to see it. Some name changes to report in NXT UK. Our old friends, the Grizzleds, have gotten some name changes. These are ridiculous. So now they will be known as Jagger Reed, and Rip Fowler. Enough said. Moving on. G1 Climax kicked off last night. Really good opening round matches. There was a lot of other matches on this card, but I just wrote down the G1 matches. Okada defeated Jeff Cobb. Jay White defeated Sonata. Will Ospreay defeated ELP. And Aaron Hanare, upset victory over Tanahashi. Tanahashi was favored 30-1 in this or something like that, and he got upset. So 2 points each in the G1 for both of them, or for all four of them. And also, like I mentioned earlier, the Great Muta is in the middle of his basically retirement tour right now. That's going to be several matches long. He won his match earlier today, I believe. I saw him execute a top rope Hurricane Rana. He's 59 years old. A lot of memories of Muta from when I was a kid and from in WCW, because Muta would be in WCW a lot, early 90s, even later on after Hogan got there with the NWO and stuff, was even a member of the NWO. And Muta's been around a long time. He's, a lot like Jushin Liger, where he's... his retirement is going to be quite the ceremony. Now, he's got 3 matches left. He's got another one coming up in September. Then he has one in October. And then he'll be wrestling in January, his last match as the Great Muta. He will have one more match after that, which will be his final match. The date and time to be or date and location on that to be announced at a later date. So he is coming up on his retirement and is currently in the middle of that. So I wanted to mention all the Pro Wrestling Noah stuff going on there. And that brings us to AEW Dynamite. We got to run through the last couple of weeks here really quick before we get into some of the other stuff. And like I said, I am already starting to run out of time. But I have missed the past couple of weeks of Dynamite as well. And I'm really excited to say we will be back up here this Wednesday for Dynamite watch-alongs. I've missed the past 3. 3 weeks ago, I was still in town, but I needed to work because I was about to go out of town, so I missed that one. And then the last 2 Dynamites I've missed because I've been on vacation. So now it's finally time to return to the watch-alongs on Wednesday, so we will be here for that. So keep that in mind. But last week on July 6th was when Wardlow defeated Scorpio Sky to win the TNT title, beat him with a boot in the chest, confetti, the whole deal. So Wardlow is now the TNT champion, which I love. If you remember, Goldberg won the U.S. title before he won the World Heavyweight title. They put him on a slow burn there, although he would go on to win the world title while still being U.S. champion. So it'll be interesting to see if Wardlow hangs onto that belt for a long time, because the TNT title tends to be a title that is passed around a lot. So Wardlow's going to be very tough to beat unless somebody comes out and costs him the title. Pretty good opportunity to bring MJF back, if you ask me, whenever they want to do that. You could have him show up in a title match involving Wardlow where Wardlow loses the belt. Christian has been talking some smack lately on the July 6th edition of Dynamite. He's in the ring with his new heel friend, Luchasaurus, cutting a promo on, Jungle Boy and all that. Matt Hardy then comes out and talks some smack to Christian, and Christian delivers the line that says, "You're starting to make your brother sound like the sober one." So they're starting to kind of cross that line with Christian. He seems to that seems to be his shtick in these promos, is to say one really over-the-top line. He would do it again last Wednesday as well with Brian Pillman Jr., and of course he talked all sorts of shit about Luke Perry and everything going on with Jungle Boy. So that's Christian's deal, coming out dressed ridiculous, dressed way too warm for summer, and being a prick. He's doing it really well. Might not be a better heel on the mic right now than Christian. Also, Chris Jericho and Eddie Kingston have been building up their big match that's set for this Wednesday. And last week on Dynamite was the deal where Ty Conti slammed the car door in Ruby Soho's arm, and it was the worst looking segment I've ever seen. They should have, I don't know if they did that live, but they should have reshot it. Ruby was literally standing there in the doorway waiting for her arm to get slammed, and it just didn't look good. But it took us into what we would see this past Wednesday, the Fyter Fest Night 1 this past week. We saw a very weird match open the show with Wardlow defending the TNT title against Orange Cassidy. This one was weird because both guys are pretty over baby faces, and Wardlow beat Orange Cassidy. So it was a good match, but I don't know if you really needed to put Orange Cassidy, of all people, against Wardlow in that match. You could have done somebody else, but I guess they wanted to give Wardlow a credible opponent. It is an interesting match on paper, but Head-scratching why they actually did it. Claudio Castagnoli defeated Jake Hager. The real Americans, or the all-American Americans, or whatever the fuck they were called, they were reunited and had a pretty decent match, I would say. And Claudio got the win in that. Jericho had his Living Legend promo this past week as well, where he officially accepted the barbed wire everywhere match against Eddie Kingston that will be taking place this week on Dynamite. And the entire Jericho Appreciation Society is going to be in a shark cage. That's going to be terrifying. Another Christian and Luchasaurus promo, this one with the Hollywood Blonde, or the Varsity Blondes, in the ring. Christian tells Pillman Jr. that his dad was average at best, which I thought was another cheap shot there. And then after that, we would go on to see Luchasaurus defeat Griff Garrison. I am becoming a monumentally huge fan of Konosuke Takeshita. Great match with Jon Moxley. Now, Takeshita did take a loss to Eddie Kingston the previous week on Rampage, but this match with Jon Moxley and everything Takeshita's done so far, in my brief glimpse of him, 4, 5, 6 matches, whatever it's been now that I've watched him, I am really liking him. He's got like this Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi vibe to him where he's just nuts, and I just love his work. He's so smooth in there, and he's so good, bleeding like a motherfucker against Jon Moxley. And in the end, of course, Moxley got the win, but it was a non-title match for the interim title. Might have been a great spot, or great opportunity, I should say, to take advantage of Moxley, who's only the interim champion anyway, having Takeshita beat him, really increasing Takeshita's stock and not doing much to harm Jon Moxley either, because Jon Moxley's had a lot of these grueling wars, a couple with Wheeler Yuta, and a lot of other young talent that he's been able to beat and get the best of, but one would argue eventually that would have to catch up to Mox, and somebody's going to have to steal one from him. But in the end, Mox won. That's fine. I just see big star potential in Takeshita, at least for AEW and Ring of Honor audiences. He's incredible, absolutely incredible. So really looking forward to seeing more from him. Also in the main event, very big upset. There was a triple threat for the AEW Tag Team titles. The Bucks defending against Team Taz, Starks and Hobbs, and Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee. Now they've been kind of teasing that Strickland and Lee are heading for a split, and then they went in the complete opposite direction and had them actually win the tag team titles. Swerve pinning Ricky Starks for the win. The crowd went nuts. Big celebration by Strickland and Lee. And after the show went off the air, Keith Lee, they put it up on the AEW's YouTube channel, cut a very heartfelt promo dedicating the win and the tag team titles to his good longtime friend who was just diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. You could really see the emotion in Keith Lee's promo. You were very happy for him because, for winning the title because of what he's gone through in his own life. But he seems to, really be heartbroken over, this diagnosis of his friend, and he vowed to get over there to see his friend as soon as he got home and dedicated everything to him. So that was really nice. Also a very adorable picture going around of Lee and Strickland leaving, and Tony Khan on the stage, literally laying on his belly on the stage, reaching over the edge and congratulating and shaking the hands of Keith Lee and Swerve Scott. And I love that. For some reason, fans find this to be a huge problem. To me, I think $12.5 million in hush money is a little bit more of a problem than hugging a wrestler. But for some reason, fans think this is a problem for a promoter, probably because they're not old enough to remember how promoters actually are, and that this is actually a nice breath of fresh air for once. And the fact that Tony is excited about people coming in, excited about his product, enjoys his job, isn't half-assing anything, isn't walking through anything, or, just going through the motions. He is fucking all in and invested. He's not going to make all the right decisions. Who can when you've only been promoting wrestling for 3 years? It's not like you're a fucking genius by this point. He's going to learn, make mistakes as he goes. But to have a promoter that is that happy to see these matches, to see the successes of certain wrestlers, to hug guys when he signs them because he's so delighted and grateful to have him on his roster, how anybody can see that as anything other than a positive is beyond me. So it's not worth defending. But if you have a problem with that, go outside, touch some grass, and try to find a titty or two to touch as well. It might help you out. Love to see that from Tony Khan. Very cool stuff. And a little bit of disappointing news coming out of AEW on Wednesday. They have announced the location for All Out, and unfortunately, it will be back at the Now Arena in Chicago, which is fine, but it's only a 10,000-seat arena. Now, I understand they were just in the United Center for Forbidden Door. I was already curious how All Out was going to work since Forbidden Door was just there. There's no rule that says you can't have another pay-per-view at the United Center, but All Out seems to be, their signature show along with Double or Nothing, and I think that should be in a bigger arena. Now, maybe they just want to have it here in this arena for tradition. I'm all about tradition, but I also think that they could sell way more seats and way more tickets if they put it in a bigger arena. So I like the small arenas for TVs and regular shows, but All Out is usually a pretty big show. And to have it here, yeah, obviously it's going to be a sellout, no doubt, but I think they could even sell more tickets if they went to a bigger arena. Hopefully we'll have CM Punk back for that. That would be great if we could see him come back, but that all depends on his recovery time and all of that. So we'll keep our eye on that, but All Out back in the Now Arena in Chicago. Last night, let's talk briefly about Fyter Fest Night 2 on Rampage. House of Black defeated Dark Order. As House of Black, it's Brody King and Malachi Black leaving. Darby Allin jumps off the tunnel and attacks Brody King, and then Sting comes out to have a little face-off with Malachi. Nothing happens, just really interesting stare-down. So I'm wondering if that's going to lead to anything, and if maybe Sting crosses over to the dark side. I don't know why they'd tease that if they weren't going to do it. So keep your eye out there. Also, great main event, our Ring of Honor title match between Jonathan Gresham, and Lee Moriarty. And Gresham got the victory there. He retained the title. He will now go into Death Before Dishonor coming up on July 23rd as the Ring of Honor champion to defend the title against somebody. Who is that somebody? Claudio, who comes out after the match, after Tully Blanchard's talking about how great he is, or Gresham is. Out comes Claudio, and he will be the guy to face Gresham at Death Before Dishonor. And I predict Claudio will win the Ring of Honor title. I don't think he did when he was there all those years prior. And I think this would be a great thing for him to do. I think the match with Gresham will be awesome. And I think he should win the Ring of Honor title, and I hope he will. Now, this is set for July 23rd. That's next Saturday. Unfortunately, I got to work. I am going to have to miss this one or catch up with it the next day. I would love to watch this pay-per-view live tweet about it, and come do a review. But unfortunately, work is going to be unavoidable that night. We've got a big one planned. So I'm going to miss that. But the card so far looks damn good. We got, like I said, Claudio Castagnoli against Jonathan Gresham. We've got FTR versus the Briscoes in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles. Samoa Joe taking on Jay Lethal. I believe that's for the TV. Wheeler Yuta versus Daniel Garcia, and Mercedes Martinez versus Serena Deeb. That's all set so far. Those 6 matches set so far for Death Before Dishonor. That looks great. Like I said, I am extremely excited for Ring of Honor to begin this rebrand, because I think it's going to be an incredible void filled, and I'm really looking forward to watching it. And I've kind of missed. I've had this emptiness since the black and gold NXT brand left, because I really enjoyed what they were doing for so many years there, and I feel like this can kind of be a rebirth of that part of wrestling for me. So I am really, really looking forward to Ring of Honor's relaunch. And for this pay-per-view coming up next week, even though I can't be here to see it live. And shout out to our friend Brian Zane of Wrestling with Regret, back in the Ring of Honor company there and doing some work for them. Very happy for him as well. Fyter Fest Night 3, that's what they're advertising as anyway. Next Wednesday on Dynamite, we've got Chris Jericho versus Eddie Kingston. Barbed wire everywhere match. Entire Jericho faction up in the Shark Cage. That'll be an interesting sight. We got Brody King taking on Darby Allin. I did see Brody King ambush Darby at like a autograph signing and putting him through a table in like a Barnes & Noble or something. I don't even know what that was about, but that's pretty cool. This should be an interesting match between those two. Christian and Luchasaurus are going to be taking on the Varsity Blondes based on what we saw last week, and we've got the Best Friends set to take on Jon Moxley and Wheeler Yuta in a tag team match. So that is all on tap for Wednesday, and like I said, we will be here watching it live. Before we just briefly get through the rest of the WWE stuff that we have to talk about, and that's going to be the end of this podcast, I want to mention Raw real quick. We've been seeing these vignettes on Raw last couple of weeks with a figure walking in the shadows, and it appears to be referencing all of his past issues and feuds. We've seen Dudley glasses, Latino heat, license plates, gold medals, Rey Mysterio masks, Hardy Boys gear. All of the stuff kind of points to Edge, but it has like a twist on it. It's almost got like a Fiend-like twist. And when we saw the first vignette, a lot of people were like, is this the Fiend? Is the Fiend coming back? But then it became clear that if it was the Fiend, all this Latino heat shit wouldn't be in there. So then it became obvious that it was likely Edge. But I'm kind of holding out hope that we get a second swerve here. Like, obviously it's going to be Edge, but what if it's Edge and Bray? Has anybody thought about that? I put it on Twitter, got a pretty good response. I'm like, we've heard Wyatt's name associated with these vignettes. What if it's both of them? What if Edge, he got booted out of Judgment Day. He got booted out from people that, he accepted, like Damian Priest, who he brought in the fold and endorsed him, and then his own faction kicked him out. What does he expect to go face this faction by himself and take them all out? Because if that's the case, Judgment Day, that's already not really getting over with the fans as it is, especially now that Edge has left. I've seen some pretty unfavorable feedback as it relates to Judgment Day. What if Edge brings some help? Like at SummerSlam, like if he shows up to confront Judgment Day and then they're all laughing at him. Well, there's 3 of us. What are you going to do? And then he goes, oh, did you think I came alone? Didn't you notice the other little hints in that vignette? Didn't you notice the hand and the leather jacket and a couple other things? I got a friend with me. And then out comes the Fiend. And it's Edge, or maybe not even the Fiend. Maybe just Bray Wyatt. Maybe the Fiend is over. But Edge and Bray Wyatt are now together as a unit, as a team. That could be fun, right? But I could be way off on that. But I think it's way, way, way too obvious that it's Edge. Sometimes obvious is not always bad. I'm excited that Edge is going to come back and stick around. But it would be cool if there was something extra attached to it, and if it was also attached with Bray Wyatt coming back. I think that would be fun. Let's briefly run through last night's SmackDown. We saw Paul Heyman trying to pit Austin Theory, I still call him Austin Theory, and Madcap Moss against each other, also trying to convince Theory not to cash in his briefcase at SummerSlam. I don't know why Heyman would care if Theory tried to cash it in. He'd probably be unsuccessful. He also had a match with Madcap Moss. Theory did, that is, and he won via disqualification after he used the briefcase on Moss. After the match, Sami Zayn, who's kind of like an honorary member of the Bloodline, comes out and wants an apology from Theory for disrespecting the Bloodline the previous week. And Theory's like, you're just a bitch. You're not even a real part of the Bloodline. You just think you are. And then the Usos come to back Sami up, and that allows Madcap Moss to attack Theory and get some revenge on him. And there's also been a lot of talk about Solo Sikoa being called up from NXT to join the Bloodline. He looks just like his brothers. He is fucking identical to them. He's really over in NXT. He gets a really positive response from the fans. He does great work. He's a great wrestler. He's kind of like a scrappy type of fighter, and I love him. And I think it would be awesome if he got called up. So I bet you they might do something with Sami, because this Bloodline shit can't last forever with Sami Zayn. He's going to have some weeks where it feels like he's on their team, but ultimately I think they're going to boot him out, and I think it will come down to a segment in the ring where Sami is, professing his devotion to the Bloodline, and then Roman says something like, think about what you're saying, Sami. Think about the name on your shirt. What does it say? Bloodline. You got any blood with us? I don't think so. But that guy standing behind you does. Boom. Solo hits the ring, attacks Sami, lays waste to him, and we have a new real member of the Bloodline. The only problem with that is that might turn Sami babyface, and Sami's still just too fun as a heel for me to really want that. But I think Solo Sikoa's call-up could involve Sami Zayn somehow. That's my prediction. Angelo Dawkins defeated Jimmy Uso one-on-one, so more Uso versus Private Party, Street Profits shit. Of course, they've got another tag team title match at SummerSlam, and this time it was a one-on-one match. Dawkins has Uso down. Charles Robinson takes a ref bump. He doesn't see Jimmy pinning Dawkins. So when Robinson comes to, Dawkins has recovered, rolls up Jimmy for the pin, and they're all mad. So this is where the special referee comes into play. Adam Pearce comes out to the stage and announces that he has found the special guest referee for SummerSlam, and it's none other than Double J. Jeff Jarrett, for some reason, is going to be the special guest referee for this tag team title match These two teams had one of the best tag team matches I've ever seen in my life at Money in the Bank. Now Jeff Jarrett's got to try to officiate this thing. The reason it's Jeff Jarrett is because SummerSlam is in Nashville, but I feel like you could have put literally anybody else in there as the referee other than Jarrett. Lacey Evans is supposed to face Aaliyah last night. She just came out and cut a heel promo on all the fans, blaming them for disrespecting her after all she's been through and pouring her heart out to all of us while we all shit on her. And she's right. It was a stupid gimmick. She says she's an American hero and calls us all nasties again and then leaves without even facing Aaliyah. So I'm really happy that Lacey Evans is a heel. This is what she needs to be. That whole shit at first, this overly patriotic stuff with that dumb, inspiring theme music that she has that sounds like something they play during one of their, back patting philanthropic events that they attend or something like that. Some inspirational, stupid, tough enough song or whatever it is. I hate it. It's one of my least favorite songs in all of WWE is what Lacey Evans comes out to the ring to. So she's now doing that disrespected hero thing, and I like that a lot better than her trying to come out here and be a babyface. So this is working for me just fine. I'm fine with it. We saw New Day coming out dressed as the Viking Raiders. They would wind up brawling with the real Viking Raiders, and Shanky and Jinder were a part of this. These guys are heels or faces now? What's that about? Jinder's a face? He almost started dancing with the New Day. He was hesitant. Shanky was dancing. Jinder's not quite ready yet, but it looks like Jinder and Shanky are baby faces. Okay. Gunther laid in some chops to Ludwig Kaiser for losing to Shinsuke last week. He's going to get a rematch against Shinsuke next week. And I don't know if this necessarily is going to automatically mean they're going to break up right now. I just think that this is Gunther's gimmick, is that he does not accept losing, and he will beat you up if you do. I got no problem with that. Liv Morgan defeated Natalya. SmackDown title match there. Beat her with her finish. Match was what it was. Speaking of a match that was what it was, Drew McIntyre beat Ridge Holland. What else is there to say? Nothing. And here's what we got for SummerSlam so far. 5 matches announced. We've got bum-ass Corbin taking on Pat McAfee. Liv Morgan defending her SmackDown Women's title against Ronda Rousey. We've got the Usos defending their unified tag team titles against the Street Profits with Jeff Jarrett as a special guest referee. And we have Bobby Lashley taking on Theory for the U.S. title, defending his U.S. title against Theory. And in the main event, Roman Reigns defending the unified Universal WWE Championship against Brock Lesnar in a last man standing match. A lot of this is heavily promoted around the idea that Theory could cash in. So he'll probably take a submission loss to Lashley, only to potentially cash in later. I would like John Cena to come out at SummerSlam, challenge Theory to a match for the briefcase, beat Theory for it, then show up before the Brock and Roman match starts and makes it a 3-way last man standing match. And then Cena wins the title. That's what I would like to see. If that happens, you heard it here first, but it probably won't. That reaches the end of my notes finally. I have got to go back over here to the chat and knock out a couple of more super chats. Most weeks, I would be sitting here talking a little bit longer with you in the chat, but I've literally got 5 minutes to wrap this up here, and then I've got to get out of here. But I want to say thank you to King Bling Blah for the $2. What does your lady think about you being a big fan? Of what? Wrestling? She loves it. She's a big fan of wrestling, too. We watch wrestling all the time together. She's gone to wrestling pay-per-views with me. We went on the Jericho cruise together. Elizabeth is the best. And not only she's a big wrestling fan, she's a big wrestling fan of this channel, or a big fan of this channel. She's my biggest supporter, my biggest fan. She's the best. She even has all the Good Mike Work shirts. She just wears them around town and shit. She is awesome. So I am very lucky that I don't have a woman that thumbs her nose at this type of stuff. She embraces it. She loves it. She's the best. Who else did I miss? Nope, I got you already. Did I say Fleury? Did I say Tyson Fleury? I might have. Oh yeah, Pat McAfee was a punter, maybe, not the kicker, not the field goal kicker. He was a punter. Punters can get it rough, man. They can take harder bumps than regular field goal kickers. Who is this Gunther you speak of? Yeah, I kind of agree with Liv Morgan, but, when it comes to the women's titles, it's such a small division. There's nobody there. To me, everybody wins the title in the women's division. Everybody. Everybody gets a crack at it. Feels like that's the way it was back in the day. And, Liv Morgan, she's very happy about it. It's a very big deal to her. But me, at the end of the day, when you have 20 women on your roster and you have 2 championships, it's like 10% of your women. Or 20% of your roster can become champion. So, and plus you got tag team titles there that may never come back, but actually I don't think they should. JJ Leg, appreciate $2 from you. I feel like I'm the only one okay with Theory as Money in the Bank. I guess I'm okay with it because, I understand WWE's got to create new stars. This is the one they're fixated on. I could have picked somebody better than Theory, but he's going to get some heat. He will, and that's actually kind of a good thing in the long run. So I'm not totally against it. I don't think I like this idea of Theory walking out of SummerSlam as champion. I'm hoping there's some sort of a swerve there. But they have really set themselves up for something. With Brock and Roman being last man standing, they can get the belt. They can move the belts here with nobody being pinned. And when you think about a briefcase situation, I've pitched the idea before Money in the Bank even happened of a big mega spot that knocks out Roman and Brock. They're both completely unconscious. Then the Money in the Bank winner comes out, cashes in, makes it a 3-way, and stands there and does nothing while the ref counts both men out to 10, and he wins the title without even lifting a finger. I would have loved to see Seth Rollins do that. I don't know if I would like that so much if it was Austin Theory. If it was Seth, I'd be marking the fuck out. I'd be celebrating, drinking champagne on the post-show live stream. If it's Theory, I'm going to be like, we're fucked, y'all. So, might not be a good idea. How long, Zach asks, do I think Liv should be champ? However long. I don't think it's going to be long. Bayley's about to come back. Charlotte's not even back right now, and she's got a match with Ronda Rousey coming up. She's going to have a short run. She will have a short run. I think it's a sympathy run, if I had to guess. I think they're giving her the belt just so they can say they gave it to her. They'll take it off of her, and then they'll decide whether or not to give it back to her in the future. But at least they satisfied this now because a lot of fans were like, give Liv Morgan an opportunity. Now she's got one. They'll have Bayley, Charlotte, or Ronda beat her. I'm 100% of that, positive of that. And maybe she'll win the belt again at a later date. But at least she's champion now, having as much fun with the title as she can, as many pictures as she can, many social media posts as she can, and being happy as she can until she coughs it up. So keep a lookout for that in the future. Anywho, I got to get out of here now. I got to do some work. This podcast will be available in audio form up on the website for download and on the podcast sites, but not until later tonight. So give it about 5 or 6 hours, and I will push that out to the podcast feed. And until tomorrow, you guys have a great rest of your Saturday night. Hopefully you guys can be here tomorrow night to watch SummerSlam 1992 with me. And then we'll be back up here Monday night as well for a Raw review. So you guys have a great rest of your Saturday. And I will catch you tomorrow night for